California, China. In fact, we spend in Ohio $40 billion for our food a year. Guess how much is grown in Ohio? 2 to 3 billion of that 40 billion we grow locally. There's something wrong with that. This is an agriculture state. We can do better than that. And this is the kind of facility that can help make that transition back to raising our own food. Because when we raise our own food, what do? Well, that billions of dollars that we're shipping off to some other state or some other country, I'm not against that, but I'd rather keep it in Ohio. I'd rather have jobs that we have here instead of the jobs being there producing, marketing, processing the food, and then selling it to us. So not only is our money going someplace else, but our jobs are going someplace else. And so there's this huge interest in working with this. And when several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I did a survey around Cincinnati for a food hub that they're developing in Cincinnati. And I talked to farmers. All the farmers I could get a hold of, I got them on the phone and talked to them. And what they said, well, first of all, they were all, 70% were over 50 years old. They said, we're not going to be doing this too much longer. I'm kind of old for this kind of thing. And most of them were part-time. And most of them didn't make any more than $50,000 on their farm every year. So what that means is, and when we look statewide and nationally, we're losing farmers. When I looked 4 years ago, all that food that we bought outside of the state, we're spending more, but the percentage is still the same. So we're not gaining farmers. So there's 4 things that I think would be real special about this kind of facility. 1, people like making things. And this is a manufacturing facility. When you grow, it's manufacturing. You are building something, you're doing something, and that feels good when you do it. That feels good, and that helps people grow personally. We're doing work. We're getting jobs. Hopefully we're getting jobs and we're creating work. At least they're learning how to work, learning how to do this, and that's important for a lot of people. And maybe the ultimate goal is to get them out there producing on their own. But this is a place to start. I mentioned the economic development. Want more food sold, grown, processed, marketed in Ohio. And then there's the health component. Wouldn't it be nice if we had fresh, secure local food that we have locally? And I think that all 4 of those elements can happen here and will happen here. I just think this is a wonderful, I'm working, as a retired, I'm working on a board for returning vets in a co-op just across the river in West Virginia. But we're looking at those returning vets and helping them adjust back into life. And what better way of working with animals or working with growing new products? We think that's really special. And to have that here in your community, I think will be really special too. So I look forward to maybe helping out some, whatever I can do to help. But I think you've got a good operation here. And this addition, this 6,000 square feet, will be quite an operation to add to what he's already doing. So good luck on that, and let's break some ground.
Yeah, I want you to share about some of the work that you did to create the curriculum and so forth. It means a whole lot to what we're doing.
Okay. Well, when I started working for Ohio State and I started dealing with local foods, first thing I realized was farmers or growers or business people are not being created like they used to in the past. Now, on a farm, I was born and raised on a farm. If I wanted to be a farmer, my dad and my grandfather would have taught me how to be a farmer. Now, I chose to get off, but I could have done it that way. And so farmers, traditionally, somebody in your family wants to be a farmer, nephew, son, daughter, they would be taught that way. But that's not the way this industry is working. Maybe still that corn and soybean operation is still working that way a little bit, but not raising fruits and vegetables, not raising tilapia, not doing those kinds of things. So what we wanted to do, and the first thing I looked at, because I'd been doing it for 35 years in career and technology, the first thing you do when you want to train somebody is find out what skills and tasks they need to do. And nobody had done that in this industry because Grandpa and Dad taught you if you wanted to know. Well, if we're not going to do that anymore, we need to identify it. So we got a bunch of growers together, locked them in a room because they didn't want to do this very bad. I kind of sneaked it in and they said yes, and then when they got there he said, oh, we have to do this. But they identified the duties, and you were one of them. They identified the duties and the tasks that it took to do it. So there was over 139 tasks. So now when we are training people, we need to say, how many of those tasks did you learn? How many did you at least get exposed to? We're not talking about a topic, we're talking about tasks. What can you do? So we identified that in food processing, we did it in growing specialty crops, we did it in tilapia, we did it in aquaculture, we did it in several areas. Now we know these are the things that you need to do. So when we set up training programs, we're going to make this list and say, okay, we'll check them off. You did this, you did this, you were exposed to this, well, that's okay, but you need to do this, 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 and eventually we could say to employers or prove to ourselves that these people know how to do the tasks to get a job. And it's more than getting a job, because getting a job wasn't too bad. We would train carpenters and they would get jobs. We would train masons and they would get jobs. And we would train people to do that. But now we're asking them to not only go to work for somebody, but maybe you want to start your own business. That's a whole nother ball game. And so the threshold to train them is even higher. So what we want to do is make sure we do it right and we do it well, because we're asking these folks to commit a big chunk of their life to be able to do this. And we don't want them ending up at the end of it saying, well, I got my education, I got this piece of paper, but I can't find a job or I can't do the work. And so we're trying to avoid that. And that's why we did a lot of that research to get it. And we're ready to implement those. We're working with a college in West Virginia that's willing to provide the related program. We're going to work with the Department of Labor to do an apprenticeship, bona fide apprenticeship program. And so that when they're done, they'll have several pieces of paper, but more importantly, they'll have the skills and the knowledge to do the job. So, good luck on your venture.